Hi, welcome to Triangle Spotlight. I am Suzanne Lynn, and today we're very excited about Dr. Sandeep Jauhar, who's joining us from New York. He's a practicing cardiologist. He's a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times. He's appeared on public radio, CNN, MSNBC, and he really discusses great issues that are related to medicine. I saw Dr. Jauhar on LinkedIn and reached out to him because Dr. Jauhar, you had a talk that you were doing about how the physical is very much tied in to the emotional. So I was excited when I saw you had a book called Heart. Would you talk to me about that? And we'll just start from there.
Sure. I wrote my latest book is called Heart: A History. It's a history of the human heart. But also a personal story. And I wrote the book for many reasons. One is that, I have a pretty malignant family history of heart disease. My grandfather died of a sudden heart attack 15 years before I was born. I never met him.
Sorry.
It really deeply impacted my father, who actually was in the room with him when he died. And so by extension, it affected all of us. So I was just very obsessed with learning about the heart from a very young age. I was also became very fascinated by the history of the heart, how we've come to learn what we know today. But I think for the purposes of our discussion, I became fascinated by the link between the emotional heart, that is the heart that we have conceptualized for thousands of years. It's the organ that contains the soul, that contains our emotions like bravery, love.
He has a lot of heart, right?
Yes, yes. So it's that metaphorical heart. And I wanted to explore how is it related to the biological heart that I treat every day as a cardiologist. And is there a link? And if so, what is it? And I came to learn in the course of researching my book that there is indeed a link, that the emotional heart or the metaphorical heart overlaps with the biological heart in many mysterious ways. Let me just tell you one. You may have heard of broken heart syndrome. It's a condition in which people who are experiencing intense grief, such as after the death of a loved one or the breakup of a romantic relationship or something like that, develop an acute weakening of the heart muscle. The heart actually decreases its function. And I've had patients who have experienced very stressful, grief-stricken events like the death of a loved one. They come into the hospital, they can't breathe. They are in congestive heart failure. We do EKGs that showed that they're having a heart attack, but they're not having a heart attack. When we look at the arteries that feed blood to their heart, those arteries are not blocked. But the heart itself acutely weakens, and it weakens into a distinctive shape called a takosubo, which is a Japanese pot, a special pot. That's the shape that the heart transforms into.
Physically, it turns into.
It physically turns in. It turns from a normal shaped heart into a takosubo heart or a broken heart, and it can last this way for days, even indefinitely. But most of the time, the heart recovers its function after the emotional state of the patient returns to normal. And so, we always talk about, a broken heart. She broke my heart. We talk about that in our popular culture, and it's because we think of the heart as the repository of love. And what I explored in the book is that there is, in fact, a very close link between that conception of the heart as this emotional object and the actual biological pump that's pumping in our chests right now. And one feeds on the other, and they're related in a very intimate way. And so I wanted to explore this, and there's a lot in the book, Heart: A History, about the broken heart, but it's also a lot about just stress, how stress impacts our hearts, and it's just a really important subject because, as you know, cardiology has made tremendous strides. We've invented pacemakers, we've done heart transplants, we do bypass surgery, we do stents, but there's this idea from our ancient philosophers, from the Catholic Church, in its conception of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. There's this idea that the heart is this special emotional thing, and that idea has largely been lost in modern medicine. And my goal with the book is to resurrect that, and so that people will appreciate how important stress is on their heart function.
Doctor, I'm glad that you brought up the name of Jesus because as a young girl, I was told that Jesus literally died from a broken heart, and I couldn't understand what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possibly what you're saying?
Well, Jesus died on the cross. He there's no, there's actually been a lot of, and some of it I discussed in the book, a lot of speculation about exactly what cardiac injury Jesus must have incurred, when he was crucified. All I can say, and I'm not a religious historian, but all I can say is that people do die from a broken heart. Whether Jesus died of a broken heart because he was betrayed, or I can't speculate, but I can tell
All the
you
burdens that were on him. Sure.
Yeah, but I can tell you that we see patients, I would say, many times a month in our hospital, just one hospital in the United States, who are coming in with a broken heart, a literal broken heart, suffered because of the death of a loved one. You don't even have to be conscious of your grief. I had a patient who came in because her husband had died. She actually was probably, she was obviously sad, but she was, I think, in some sense, relieved because it had been a very long illness. He'd had Alzheimer's, and but about a week after the funeral, she looked at his picture and became tearful. And then all of a sudden, her heart started to palpitate. She got short of breath. She couldn't. She had to sit up in a chair to breathe properly. She came to the hospital. We did an ultrasound of her heart, and it had weakened to less than half its normal function. A week later, when her emotional state had returned to normal, so too had her heart.
Doctor, what is the link with specifically being the heart? Why not the brain? Why not the liver?
Well, so the heart is extraordinarily sensitive to the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is the nervous system that is sort of mediates fight or flight.
Okay.
And there are many nerves that go directly into the heart that release adrenaline and other hormones when we become excited or upset. Those hormones can constrict blood vessels and cause profound cardiac injury. That sort of nervous system is not really present in other organs. So, the ancients sort of had it right. They knew that when you're upset, it's not like you stop making urine or something. Your kidneys don't acutely get damaged, but
Sure.
they knew, they could feel that their hearts were palpitating, were speeding up. They could sense this direct link between our emotions and our emotional responses and our heartbeat. And they didn't know exactly what that link was. Today we have a much better idea. But the idea of the heart being the place where emotions reside has some truth.
That is fascinating. What do you say to your patients when you see a clear change in their physical heart and knowing their situation? What can you do about it? Or how, even better, could you prevent it from happening?
Right. So that's a great question. So the most important thing is that the heart function usually returns to normal when the person's emotional state returns to normal.
Okay.
So that we have had patients who have literally died um, of broken heart
Wow.
syndrome. But in most cases, let's say 80% or more, the patients recover. In some cases, the heart remains weak, but the patients, remain alive.
It's still
And
taking a
then
toll on them, though.
it's still
Yeah.
taking a toll on
Yeah.
them. Yes. So, I mean, I think the most important thing is to remind people that there is this link between the popular imagination of what the heart is, the Valentine heart, the heart that is the Sacred Heart of Jesus, that signifies monastic love, or the Valentine heart that signifies romantic love. This idea, this metaphor, is directly linked to science. The
Mhm.
science has shown that this link is not fanciful. It's not made up. It wasn't a product of of ignorance of our ancients. They actually were onto something, and we're learning now that that thing is in fact real. So I would say that if you want to live well and you want to live right by your heart, obviously do the right things. Don't smoke, eat right, exercise, but also pay attention to your emotional heart. Pay
Mhm.
attention to the emotional state that you're in. Pay attention to your relationships with your spouse, with your children, with your coworkers. All these things directly affect uh, our lives more than we realize.
It's interesting because you hear about couples that have been married for years and years, and one spouse dies, and within 3 or 5 hours, the next one passes. Or
Yeah,
as soon as somebody goes into a nursing home, um, you wonder, oh, well, did they catch something? What was? No, there's a direct correlation between physical well-being and where they're at emotionally. So that really puts more of a responsibility on us as humans to love each other and protect each other and be responsible for how we're treating and what the situation other people are in. We're responsible for their well-being in that way.
yeah. One of the first hints of broken heart syndrome, this is before there was even ultrasound, was uh, almost a century ago. There was a an epidemiologist who studied gravestones, tombstones
Mhm.
in Europe, and he found that spouses tend to die within 1 year of each other, and that doesn't really um, comport to what you'd expect simply by chance. That there's
Right.
a correlation. When one spouse dies, the other spouse tends to die within a year. And I think it's related to the grief that leads to a syndrome like broken heart syndrome. So you're absolutely right. We have to pay attention to that, not just in ourselves, but also in the wider community, in our, communities, our churches, our, we idea that togetherness and support and love are key factors in cardiac health.
Our words matter, our actions matter, our intentions matter. It's got a
Absolutely.
greater effect on people than we know. Doctor, why don't you give me one piece of nugget that you especially are like to point people to in your book?
Oh, I mean, the book was a PBS NewsHour, New York Times book pick of the month. So
Wow.
so it was it got a lot of it was the book of the year in England,
Oh my gosh.
and so so it did very well. I'm very fortunate. Um, and I think the reason why it resonated is because people are interested in ways to live more healthfully, but they want to know also about the medical aspects. How did we come up with the technologies that we have um, that we've invented, that we've all benefited from? I mean, just to give you an idea, heart transplants, pacemakers, defibrillators, stents, bypass surgery, all these things, heart attack treatments, all these things that we take for granted were basically invented or discovered after World War II, and
Mhm.
almost all in every case in the United States. So I go into that history also. For example, most people don't realize that the heart uh, wasn't operated on until the end of the 19th century. Every other organ in the body, including the brain, had been operated on, but not the heart. And part of it is because the heart is such a special organ in our cultural imagination that, we think of it as the place where the soul resides. And
Mhm.
so that prevented, and then that prevented manipulation. But then there are also other reasons. The heart's always moving. It's hard to cut into something that's moving. The heart's filled with blood. If you cut it open, you would bleed to death. So how we came, how we circumvented that problem is a fascinating history. The
Mhm.
development of the heart-lung machine. So the thing about the book is that it's about the emotional heart. It's about the metaphorical cultural history, but it's also about the medicine of it
Mhm.
and how we've come to learn what we have. So I think there's something in it for the biologists. I think it's something in it for for those who are interested in learning more about the mind body connection. So
Hmm.
I hope people will see that and read the book.
That's wonderful. Again, it's called Heart, A History. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
And where can they find this?
You can go to Amazon. It's available in paperback. You can go to my website, which is sandeepjauhar.com,
Okay.
one word. But it's available, in bookstores everywhere. So, and if listeners do read it, I welcome comments. If you go to my website, you can directly email me and your thoughts, and I am very interested in hearing them.
Dr. Jauhar, you've been so kind. You're a very busy man. I mean, a cardiologist in New York, and you just have found you've been so gracious to find time for us. And I'm so fascinated by this topic. I'm definitely going to be getting this, and I just thank you so much for your time. And I hope that you have a great day. And thank you for all the positive things that you're doing in the world.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for watching the show. We hope that you enjoyed it. Having digital marketing for your product or organization is so crucial these days. People are ditching traditional advertising like print and broadcast commercials and turning to relationship marketing platforms like YouTube and podcasts that people can consume on demand on their time. Let's talk about how we can build your digital library with segments just like this.